Views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to Lyme Talk Radio with Dr. Pat Baccili. Epic healing for an epic life. This inspiring show highlights leading-edge solutions, groundbreaking research, headline topics, and tools for holistic healing and wellness. This hit show is dedicated to raising awareness, promoting advocacy and prevention, and supporting initiatives for optimal health. Dr. Pat is passionate and focused on life-saving results reaching far beyond Lyme disease, providing a forum for powerful stories, heart-opening experiences, and hope-activated solutions. Dr. Pat will shine a light on the many shades of Lyme disease fueled by a body-mind-spirit remedy. Now here's your host, Dr. Pat.
Everybody, it is so great to be connecting with all of you. Thank you for tuning us in, turning us on. I am so excited about what we're planning. And of course, many of you know the Dr. Pat Show. You certainly know some of the other things we've done, Transformation Talk Radio and our new venue, Transformation Radio, where we're launching our own health wellness channel, an entire channel, 24/7 programming, live in studio producers, and some of the most incredible thought leaders of our time when it comes to wellness. And you know what? I have got one of those people joining me here today. You know, you ever wonder about how it is in your life that you step down a path and you're thinking, man, I'm doing pretty good. But wait a minute. All of a sudden one day you come down, maybe, what is it? It's a mystery disease, or maybe not. And what is it about that journey that changes your life? But how about before the journey? How about the things that that are happening in your body? Yeah, the Allergy Solution. Unlock the surprising hidden truth about why you are sick and how to get well. I love doing this. I love Dr. Leo Galland joining me here today. And guess why? Because if there's anything that we can say to you today, so you do not have to go down the pathway and have the journey that I've had and see all the people that Dr. Leo has had, this is a good day in your life. And let me just tell you, whether or not you are battling something or not battling something, seeing Dr. Leo, whether it's been on CNN, PBS, whether it's been on television, whether you've heard him on radio, featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, Self, Men's Fitness, guess what the message is? The message is you too can unlock the surprising hidden truth about why you're sick. And you know what's most important about this message from Dr. Leo is, you ready? How to get well. I love what he has done in the book. I love his message. I love the fact that he and I can have a show like this, right, folks? And there's nobody going to come on the air and say, wait a minute, Dr. Leo, I don't want you to say that on here. Don't talk about that. Or Dr. Pat, wait a minute. Don't talk about that Lyme disease thing. So today's show is about Lyme and beyond Lyme. It is about health. It's about wellness. It's about mind-body healing. It is about the spirit, and it is certainly about you and thriving. Dr. Galland, I just so great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
It's really great to be talking with you today, Dr. Pat.
Yeah.
You were talking about driving just now?
Yes.
Okay. There's an amazing set of studies that were done related to driving while allergic.
Yes.
And since the topic of driving came up,
yes,
I just want to tell you about them. This research was done in the Netherlands at the University of Maastricht. And what these researchers did was they took people who had pollen allergies and they tested their driving skills on a closed course out of season when there was no pollen in the air. They then exposed them to tiny doses of the pollen to which they were allergic and retested them. The pollen exposure in these people with allergies impaired their driving performance to the same extent as having a blood alcohol level of 0.05%, which is the legal limit in many places and is the amount that most people get from 2 cocktails.
Oh.
And So it really gives you pause to think, like, what is the impact of allergies on motor vehicle accidents? I mean, there's 60 million people in this country who have nasal allergies. And, so that was a very interesting study. But the importance of it goes beyond driving because, you talked about the mystery illness.
Yeah.
I see so many people with chronic fatigue, brain fog, sleep disturbances, mood disturbances, and a whole range of other problems that don't directly involve the brain, but many of them do involve the brain. And very often, a hidden allergy underlies those problems. And in order to reverse symptoms, that allergy needs to be identified and treated.
I love that you're talking about this because you opened the book. And by the way, for those of you just tuning in, the Allergy Solution, Dr. Leo Galland joining me here today. But here's what I want to say about this, right? You open the book and you say Introduction to New Mystery Disease. No kidding, right? I mean, I reflect back on a childhood, and that's why I was so excited to talk with you. Like you're on the East Coast. I grew up on the East Coast. I moved to New Jersey, and allergy is an understatement, Dr. Lear, when we're talking about that. Allergy was an understatement for me. I can't tell you, I couldn't breathe. It was just so overwhelming. And yet at the same time, we're not really looking at the full scope of allergy. Is it just pollen or is it something else? And I would love for you to talk about that. Aren't you really writing a new narrative about allergy, one that really, really addresses some of the things that some people have been saying for years, but nobody would really listen to?
Yeah, I think a new narrative is a great description of what we've done with the book. And the origins of that narrative, actually, there are two of those. Mm-hmm. One is clinical experience. I've been treating patients with allergic disorders for decades, and I've seen the many different ways in which allergies affect people and the many different environmental and nutritional and life factors that impact on allergy. And so that was the original impetus for this book. But in the course of writing it, I and my son Jonathan, who wrote it with me, did extensive reviews of the scientific literature. I mean, I'm always digging into the scientific literature and treating patients. I know, me too. But when you start writing a book, you go way beyond that. And it's always, every time I do this, it's amazing to me to see how much of what I've observed clinically that has been ignored by mainstream medicine is actually supported by scientists doing research, often in other countries, not in the U.S. But it's there in these well-done studies that what I'm seeing happening with patients actually is consistent with what scientists are demonstrating in clinical research trials, in laboratory studies, and it bringing those two narratives together really has helped me to make sense of this phenomenon that we're seeing in the world, this explosive increase in allergies, the multiple ways it's affecting people, and the ways out of the epidemic. Because the epidemic has well-defined causes, and that leads to well-defined solutions.
Yeah. I love this because, listen, this is a real story. I mean, this is what's really happening. I have a very close friend of mine who is driving on the back roads of where she lives in a very, very, the farm country of New Jersey, central west New Jersey, right? And driving on the road one day, driving. And the next thing you know, the car is flipped over. And, here you are in this world, and it's really clear she's sensitive to allergies, right? But yet to have a conversation with anybody about that, you might as well, it's almost better off if you're from another planet, because up until what you've written in your book, insurance companies are not like, nope, that sounds like you had some pre-existing condition and that's what happened. And by the way, then you go to the medical test, right? And they can't find anything. They're not fine. There's nothing really wrong with you. Oh, wait a minute, except maybe you've got severe allergies. How do we help with, taking this narrative now and putting it in the hands of people so that they can literally get an audience to what's really going on with them?
Well, that's the reason I wrote the book.
Yeah.
And we included in the book, there are about 500 references to the scientific literature. So if you take this to your doctor, you can show the doctor the studies that talk about the multiple different effects of allergy, the role of food allergies in conditions where people don't ordinarily suspect food allergies, and the approaches. What I did was we started with a description of the many faces of allergies. Yes. And self-assessment, how you can decide if you have a hidden allergy, and then moved on to, okay, these are some of the things that you can do to begin to reverse allergies. Because one of the important misconceptions, tragic misconceptions about allergy, actually, is that, this is all genetic, you're born with this, and all you can do is suppress it with drugs, which then can create way more problems.
Right.
But allergies are reversible because their causes are environmental and nutritional. I mean, about 100 years ago, almost nobody had allergies.
That's right.
I mean, it was really an obscure disorder. And over the past 100 years, there's been a progressive and steady increase in allergies, first with conditions like hay fever and sinus infections, and then asthma got recruited in,
yep.
and then food allergies. And the proven incidence of food allergies in the U.S. and England tripled between about 1995 and 2010. So I mean, this is continuing to expand. 1 billion people in the world now have allergies, and this is not due to their genes. The genetics aren't changing. What is changing are environment and nutrition as well. And what I identified in the Allergy Solution is the interaction between nutrition and food and these different layers of the levels of the environment that create allergy. So there's the outdoor environment, which is basically air pollution, the factors contributing to global warming. It's not the temperature itself. The increasing temperatures and climate change prolong the pollen season, but what really drives the pollen count higher is the carbon dioxide in the air, and then the diesel exhaust particles and other kinds of particulate air pollution bind to allergens, make them more damaging to our lungs and our noses and our skin. So we've got that whole component of the environment. Indoors, there are 100,000 chemicals that we inadvertently bring into our homes. Many of them can promote allergy. Formaldehyde, for example, which is found in pressed wood and glued wood products and particle board. Very good documentation on that. And then there's the internal environment in our GI tracts, the microbes living in our gut. And there's really excellent research which indicates that depletion of beneficial gut microbes and the loss of biodiversity of these microbes is yet a third factor in creating allergy.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about what you've put in the book, and there are many things I love, but the thing that I'm really struck by, of course, being a researcher, kind of myself, is this idea of how you're connecting the dots. And today, of course, we're going to talk about Lyme disease, but, for many of us that have gone down this pathway and are well enough to come back and talk about it, because, for me, I was literally looking at a wheelchair in 2008. So the fact that I'm even sitting here talking with you, continuing to do this, it's nothing short of the miracle. But I will say that I had to go down the pathway that you now are taking people down. It's the pathway where we get to do the research on our own bodies, the research on what's going on inside of us. And that's what I was really struck by in what you've written. I want to ask you this. What do you see as the greatest challenge that people face in addressing allergies? What do you see is up in our faces about this?
Well, the greatest challenge, that's a really good question. So let me think about that.
Sure.
The ultimate challenge, because, what the greatest challenge is for one individual may be different than for another. But the ultimate challenge is the world in which we live because of the commercial interests that dominate that world. I'll just give you an example of a study that was actually done where you live in Seattle, that we talk about in the book. It was a study that, first of all, let me just say that from the perspective of allergy, it's been pretty well established that synthetic fragrances promote inflammation in the nose and predispose to allergies. Because inflammation breaks down the protective linings of our different tissues and allows allergy to occur. So there was a fascinating study done in Seattle by researchers at the University of Washington, where she looked at the effect of clothes dryers on air quality. And she ran in different homes. She would run a clothes dryer with just either empty or with ordinary clothes that had just been washed in it. But then she added a dryer strip, or had the clothes washed in something that had fragrance to it, like a detergent with fragrance. And the number of different chemicals that were vented onto the street or into the backyard from the clothes that had been washed with the fragrance detergent was really astronomical. And some of these are potential carcinogens. They're all irritants. And she actually had to move to Australia to continue her research. The fragrance industry in this country is so big and so powerful, she couldn't get more funding. And so I would say the ultimate challenge are the social forces that we are up against.
Oh, boy.
That are polluting the air, that are misleading people. I mean, about what they need to have in their homes. Oh, the air smells terrible here. You should spray a chemical air freshener into it. That doesn't give you clean air. It's the widespread use of antibiotics and pesticides in animal feed that then contributes to that destroys the healthy bacteria living in our bodies. So there are a lot of personal choices that can be made to limit your exposure. But ultimately, there are these social forces that we need to deal with. And and they impact not only on us, they impact on the whole world and the population as a whole. But fortunately, for an individual, there are a lot of choices that you can make. And so in the short run, the challenge is getting the knowledge to make those choices. And that's what I try to address in the Allergy Solution.
Yeah, you do. I have to say, you do a fantastic job, because there are a couple of things in here that I love about the way you're introducing this to us, which was never really introduced. I am that person that you just referenced. You know, I am the person that grew up as a kid, and then we moved to New Jersey. And then in my 20s and on, all of a sudden now I had sinus infection after sinus infection after sinus infection. I mean, it was like all the time. And knew very little at the time about that, right? You know, not many people walking up and saying, maybe you'd be allergic to something. And it was always classified, Dr. Leo, as pollen. But isn't this particular narrative, this conversation, now this is pollen plus. It's pollen plus, right? Because we're talking about a ton of other things here.
Right. I mean, it's, first of all, there are chemicals that either are allergens or that make you more allergic. There's mold, which is in the Northwest, I'm sure that has to be a pretty challenging issue.
Oh my gosh.
It's so damp up there.
Oh.
I mean, mold is not only a source of major allergens, it's a source of toxins. And those, in fact, to some extent, allergic reactions are an attempt by your body to protect against toxicity when other protective measures fail. And so the total toxic load that you're exposed to will influence how allergic you are. I mean, it's the interplay of many different factors. The good news is that each of these can be dealt with. You just have to be able to identify them and work systematically to change them.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I would love to talk with you about what you call in the book, Mission Detoxable. And the reason that this is so important, it's because it really pinpoints why this is a new narrative. You see, because generally when we're talking about allergies, even a decade ago, there's nobody really talking about some of the things you're talking about. And I have to tell you, I live in the coffee state. And I will tell you that I was thrilled to hear that the little paragraph or 2 or 3 paragraphs you have in here about joining the homemade coffee revolution. When we come back, what does Mission Detoxable mean? And why is this more than just some kind of fad? What is it that we're now learning from Dr. Leo about this? And how does this begin the process? And I don't mean just for allergies. I mean Lyme disease. What is it about, walking into the doctor and a doctor that knows a little something and who says to you, here's what we're going to do. Stop eating everything white and, make sure you're not doing this. And please don't do this right now and drink plenty of this, this, or this. Where are they going with that? Well, that's why we've got Dr. Leo Galland here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 3-day power wash and a lot more. Going to give you information about his website, how you can get a copy of the book. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Pat. The ancient Inca root vegetable maca is world-renowned for its wide array of health benefits. As a family-run company of true maca specialists, the maca team's mission is to provide you with fresh, organic, premium quality maca powders at a fair price. Amazing. All of the products are always organically grown, fair-traded, GMO-free, fresh, and potent. So don't take my word for it. Experience the life-changing benefits of maca today. Visit themacateam.com.
Francine Vale is a being of light. She believes that all people of planet Earth are as well. As co-host of the Angel Healer radio show, Francine teaches you heart-centered ways to manifest healing on your own behalf and how to integrate love more fully into your daily life. Connect with your angels as you find your life flowing with ease and harmony. Walk the path of light with Francine and Dr. Pat Baccili every month on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Transformation Talk Radio is dedicated to the education and awareness of Lyme disease.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Lyme Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Pat, joined here by
Dr. Nusheen Darvish.
Dr. Pat Baccili and Dr. Nusheen Darvish will be bringing the most innovative, groundbreaking information, research, treatment innovations, and stories from those it affects every day.
I'm so excited to be talking about this.
We have so much to share.
Dr. Darvish and I are planning to do is connect the dots.
People suffering with all sorts of chronic diseases, it's time. It is time for them to transform.
Tune into Lyme Talk Radio and help keep our mission strong.
For the loyal listeners out there that have been listening to this incredible show on Lyme disease, we are not going to let you down. We're going to come through stronger and enrich the platform for Lyme disease awareness through Lyme Talk Radio. The message will continue, the conversations will become stronger, and the healing epic.
Do you want to achieve your goals? Do you want to strengthen relationships with others? Do you want to improve your financial status? Colette Marie Steffen is partnering with Mark Kettenbach to bring you an energetic upgrade online experience launching in April. Unfold and develop your full potential. Visit energeticupgrade.com today for more information. That's energeticupgrade.com.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Pat. Many of you have heard me talk about the Lyme disease epidemic going on right now in the world. I want to tell you about my friends at Results RNA. They have now created an entire Lyme support system for immune system support, detoxification, rejuvenation, and neurological healing. Please visit resultsrna.com to learn more, and for first-time orders, you'll receive a special 10% discount. All you have to do is type in Dr. Pat at checkout. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's so great to have you here on the show. I am so thrilled. And just so you know, Dr. Leo Galland joining me here today. Before we go ahead, and we are going to talk about, Mission Detoxable, I would love for you to let folks know, first of all, what's the best way to get a copy of the book? And also, you have a lot of information on your website. Let's make sure we're giving that out to them. Could we do that, Dr. Leo?
Well, sure. The website is easy. If you know my name, it's drgalland.com. That's drgalland.com. And there's a load of information there. The book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you just go to amazon.com, Leo Galland, and it'll come up.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so we're going to really look at let's follow the breadcrumbs here. And, that's what I love about the way that you've written the book, but also the way that you're talking about this in the world. Back in 2004, by the time I got to 2008, I was about 110 pounds heavier than I am today. Basically, my cells have stopped working, but everything you've written in the book explains this, you see. It explains this. And then I went on the path that you describe in the book. So can you bring us up to date with the state of affairs around Mission Detoxable? Are we ready to love it and embrace it, Dr. Galland?
Sure. Well, yeah, Mission Detoxable.
Yeah.
Mission Detoxable is a way of looking at your environment and understanding what you put into your environment that is toxic to your body and dysregulates your immune system. Some of these substances are, may act as allergens, some just as irritants, but they all have the potential for dysregulating your immune system. And, there are just so many chemicals in the modern world that we don't need anymore, Do you know that every 2.6 seconds there is a new chemical that comes out of a laboratory somewhere in the world? I mean, that's about 1 million new chemicals every year. Most of these are totally unregulated. And And they're used for all sorts of purposes. We're exposed to them without knowing we're exposed to them. And the consequences can be really unexpected and disastrous. One of the ones that I'd like to just talk about, something called triclosan. Triclosan is something that's used as an antibacterial, and it's added to soaps and shampoos, and toothpastes, dish detergents. It's even used in clothing. You know that those clothes that they sell that are not supposed to smell, like gym clothes that don't smell bad?
Right.
Yeah, they don't smell bad because they have antibacterial substances like triclosan in them that are killing bacteria. Well, I mean, here's the thing about something like that. If you use or touch anything that has triclosan in it, it's absorbed through your skin, and it travels throughout your body. There were researchers at the University of Michigan who measured the level of triclosan inside the nose of people and found that half the population has triclosan coming out of their nose. Now, that's crazy. I mean, who would think that that's the case? Children have triclosan in their urine, and there is a direct relationship between the level of triclosan that's coming out of your body and how allergic you are. Not only that, but even though triclosan is being used to kill bacteria, it actually increases the ability of staph bacteria to grow in your tissues. So they found that there was a direct relationship between the level of triclosan in secretions from the nose and the level of staph growing in those people's noses. Now, staph can cause really bad infections, especially sinus infections. So here you're using these, we're all being exposed to these antibacterials to prevent infection, but they're actually increasing the risk of getting sinus infections.
Right.
And then, but there's an effective staph that most people don't know about. Staph itself produces toxins, and these toxins, you swallow them. If you have staph growing in your nose, you swallow them along with mucus, because whatever is in your nose or whatever you breathe in, you wind up swallowing.
Yeah.
So these staph toxins, called superantigens, travel down your digestive tract, and they dysregulate your immune system. You then start to become allergic to the foods that you're eating because the staph that is growing in your nose, as a result of you're being exposed to triclosan, is dysregulating your immune system and making you become more allergic to food that you eat. And that's the kind of vicious cycle that I see occurring over and over again in our different environments that's creating the allergy epidemic.
Yeah.
Now, so what can you do about it, aside from not using triclosan?
Well, I mean, this is really the question, though. But, most importantly, it's having a show like this and a conversation like this, because isn't awareness the first step? And,
Absolutely.
if we're not going to talk about it, and you're not going to really get a conversation like this on the major networks pretty much, because chances are if we mention that spray thing that you spray in your house, and that's a sponsor of the show, that's not so good. But see, the good news about this is I'm actually the network owner, and we don't have rules like that. And so, part of this, isn't it to really help people connect the dots? Help people really recognize, wow, this thing may be going on, this stuffy nose that I have going on here. Oh, and wait a minute, can you and I talk for a minute about brain fog? I mean, nobody even thinks that brain fog can be part of an allergy process, right? And, if you're over 65 and you start walking around with brain fog, you know where you end up with that, right?
Sure.
Right. But isn't this really important to start to tease these apart, Dr. Galland, to start to pull these apart so that people have informed, intelligent information and know the questions to ask when they go to see their doctors, right?
Yes, that is absolutely important. And And that, you can't rely on your doctor to know everything that's important about you. Doctors are very busy. So you need to be aware, you need to be informed, and that's the only way that you can work with your doctor.
You have to be, and something you talk about in the book as well is, you're talking about some of the other things to be aware of. Now, I'm really clear when I say I was 110 pounds heavier. You look at the book, right? And you have an entire chapter in the book called Are Allergies Making You Fat? Are allergies making you fat? Well, most people or most doctors we'd go to, they cannot connect, they're not going to connect the dots. But I will tell you, in my case, allergies plus a bunch of other things as well. And, is this really for folks to understand this is what's going on in our body? And by the way, what about stress? How about meat, milk, and wheat? And I wanted to ask you this question, Dr. Leo. Are you surprised about the degree by which, gluten is now showing up in the mainstream, or gluten allergies showing up in the mainstream?
No, I think it's a really good thing that there's been such a growing awareness of gluten sensitivity as a source of problems. And it isn't always just gluten. I mean, there are many aspects of wheat that can be challenging for us to handle and digest. The starch in wheat is very hard for humans to digest and can cause gas and bloating and changes in bowel movements, may foster the overgrowth of harmful bacteria in the gut. Interestingly, a lot of the people that I see with chronic Lyme disease are sensitive to gluten and do much better when they eliminate gluten from their diets.
Why do you suspect that is? Because I have found that to be fascinating and true. I mean, can you help us understand the connection?
Well, I think there are so many levels on which Lyme disease and allergy interact. Yeah. Lyme, as I said to you a little earlier, Lyme disease is really like an invasive species. Yeah. It starts to take over a community. It starts to take over your medical practice. These organisms have very complex effects on your immune system. I've seen Lyme be the cause of allergy in some patients. Yeah. Even chemical sensitivity, which then improves when the Lyme is treated. But the treatments itself can be hazardous, especially if you have to rely on antibiotic treatments. Right. Because the antibiotics then disrupt the ecology of your body and may have other subtle effects on your cells and your immune system that make you more allergic. So this becomes a difficult area for people to work through on their own. And it's really important to have a cooperative relationship with the health professional. Right. If Lyme is the problem that is driving your ill health. Yeah. I mean, I think that, in part of the country that you're living in, especially where I grew up, it is hard to fathom someone showing up, with allergies, with other symptoms, with joint pain, you name it. We could go through the list. And there still be a doctor there that doesn't really know, A, let's go for the Lyme test, but B, let's figure out the right Lyme test to give you. But you know something, Dr. Galland, even today, we don't have that level of awareness. You said something interesting I would love for you to talk about. You said something interesting about the fact that here you are in this world of allergies, which now opens up the door for really one of the fastest growing epidemics we have, in our country and perhaps even in the world.
But you have now connected the dots between allergies and Lyme disease. So you must have patients, right, that are now coming to you in droves that do have Lyme disease. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, sure, I'm definitely seeing more and more people with Lyme disease. I mean, on a given day, half the patients in my practice may have Lyme. Mm-hmm. And most of them, well, they fall into two categories, basically. Okay. There are people who have a chronic illness, and no one has yet diagnosed Lyme disease, but Lyme is likely. And as the cause of this multi-system, multi-symptom disorder that's been so elusive to treatment by other approaches. And that's one half of them. And the other half are people who have already been treated for Lyme by other practitioners, sometimes very competent practitioners who are Lyme literate. And these are people who are believed to have chronic Lyme disease, but they're still not well. And so my job becomes trying to figure out, is this person still infected, or are we dealing with the aftermath of the infection or its treatment? There was a study that was done at Johns Hopkins. First of all, let me say that every year, according to the estimates of the CDC, there are about 300,000 people in the U.S. being treated for Lyme disease. Right. Most of these people are being treated for kind of simple acute Lyme. There was a study done at Johns Hopkins in which they took a whole bunch of people who were being treated for acute Lyme disease, and they followed what happened to them after their treatment. They got the standard treatment, 3 weeks of doxycycline or another antibiotic. And 6 months later, 30% of those people were still sick and not functioning nearly as well as they had been before they ever got Lyme disease. So if you extend those statistics, it means that at least 100,000 people in the U.S. every year join the ranks of the unwell because of acquiring Lyme disease. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the challenge then becomes, so in the course of a decade, that's 1 million people. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of Americans have this problem. And there are very few doctors who really have a good understanding of how to treat it. So those of us who are aware of it have, there are a lot of people who want to consult Lyme specialists for that reason. Now, and part of what we're knowing now, and what I love about this, though, is the fact that, if you go back 10 years or so, you couldn't find hardly anything about Lyme anywhere. Of course, if you lived in the Northeast, in the Connecticut, Rhode Island area, sure, of course. But, in the regular population, not so much. Today we have organizations that have come up. We've got shows like this because, all of us really understand much more about it. And, just like you've just talked about, doctors have come forth and have said, this is something we have to pay attention to. This is the process. But part of something you said I want to really get back to, and that is that there is a solution. And you also, that's why your book is called The Allergy Solution. There is a solution, just like there's a solution to allergy, there is a solution to Lyme. But it doesn't follow the grid, so to speak. I mean, it's not going to follow necessarily go to the doctor and get a pill, get a potion, get a lotion. While sometimes you have to do that. What we're talking about here is giving people other choices, other options, right? And I would love for you to talk about that because you do talk about body, you do talk about, mind. I mean, you are talking about that in the book. But clearly what we're putting in our bodies, we can start there. That doesn't cost us a dime, does it? Right. And what we put in our bodies and what we bring into our homes are the places to start. especially with allergies, but also with Lyme disease, because frankly, if you're highly allergic and if you live in a toxic environment and if you're eating toxic food, you're not going to get better from Lyme disease.
Right.
Just as you're not going to get better from allergies.
Right.
So the approaches really overlap substantially. So, the first thing to do is to take stock of where you live and what is there and what you're bringing into it, and look for the presence of mold. Dampness is a huge problem. And then, in fact, among people who are being treated for chronic Lyme disease or for severe allergies, let's say asthma, who are having a hard time getting better, environmental mold, it can be a really significant factor. And just remediating it can have a huge impact on your health.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is what you're eating. There are nutrients in food that have anti-allergic and immune modulating effects. They include the things like zinc and magnesium and selenium, vitamin C and vitamin E, and I'm talking about from food, because supplements are rarely adequate to correct these deficiencies. And most important of all...
Yeah, because you're talking about nutrition, and I'm glad you pointed that out, right? Because there's a difference between supplements and nutrition, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but we don't know that in our society. I don't know that we've quite figured that out. It took me a lot of years.
Yes, there's a huge difference. And nowhere is that clearer than with the flavonoids.
Oh.
Bioflavonoids are naturally found in food. If you have a food that has a deep red or purple color like blueberries or strawberries, they're going to be loaded with bioflavonoids. Some bioflavonoids are colorless, and you'll find them in other foods as well. But spices, for example, green tea, loaded with bioflavonoids. The thing about bioflavonoids is there are about 400 of these that are found in the human diet, and they definitely protect against allergy. The higher your intake of flavonoids from food, the less likely you are to become allergic. Flavonoids also, and this is really important for the people with sinusitis and food allergy, they block the ability of staph toxins to promote allergic reactions.
Yeah.
So they have a really important protective effect. And high flavonoid diets are essential for optimal health. So 2 simple steps that you can take to begin reversing your allergies and building your immune system are to get rid of environmental toxins that you can manage in your home, in your office, in the indoor environments that you have control over.
Yeah.
And change your diet.
Yeah.
Cut back on sugar, eliminate fast foods, and start eating all the vegetables and fruits and spices that are loaded with flavonoids and with minerals. Nuts and seeds also very helpful. Yeah. Because of the minerals they contain.
And I want to just comment on this for a minute, because you said something really interesting. I think one of the things that we've all become more mindful about, and you really do call this out in the book. For those of you just tuning in, Dr. Leo Galland joining me here today, co-author with Jonathan Galland, the Allergy Solution. And what Dr. Galland has done is he has really taken us on a quite easy to understand journey. Everything from telling us about what is in vitamin A. What do you want to eat to do vitamin A? Boom. Cantaloupe. There's a reason that I was so drawn to cantaloupe. But more than that, you really give us a blueprint, and not the kind of blueprint that is daunting, Dr. Galland. And what I mean by that is anybody can pick up this book and you can begin the journey. That's what I love about it. But you said something interesting, and you also talk about it in the book. How important is it for us to pay attention to labels? You know, what I mean is, I know I kind of teased you a little bit about the coffee thing, but when my doctor said that I had to give up coffee, and I just wouldn't, I switched to organic, fair trade, shade-grown coffee. We have some of the best roasters on the planet right in my backyard. But there was a reason for doing it, because coffee is just one of those things like other things. There is so much in there that we don't even know about. How important is it for people to really look at where they're getting their foods from?
Oh, it's essential.
Okay.
And organic is so important because pesticides and herbicides kill the beneficial bacteria that live in your body. And non-GMO is important. The issue with genetically modified foods is not so much that, well, I mean, to some extent it's, well, if it's genetically modified, maybe you're more likely to get an allergic reaction to it. You don't really know what its composition is. That's, I think, a legitimate concern. But the real concern with GMO foods is they're rendered GMO for a reason. And the main reason right now is to make them resistant to glyphosate, Roundup, Monsanto's weed killer, herbicide. So if you have genetically modified soy or corn, for example, that's resistant to glyphosate, then on these large industrial-sized farms, they can just spray all their crops with glyphosate. All the weeds get killed, and the plants that they want to harvest don't get killed. The result is that the food that you're eating is going to contain glyphosate. So now you're eating glyphosate, and glyphosate is an antibiotic, and it's killing beneficial bacteria. In fact, it encourages the growth of harmful bacteria, in chickens at least, and presumably the same effect would happen in humans. So that kind of awareness of food sources and environment is really critical.
Yeah.
And, and again, you asked me, what's the biggest challenge that we face? Well, it's the society. There's this bill in Congress. There are states that want to make GMO labeling mandatory on food that's sold in that state.
Right.
Well, the Congress has been considering a bill that would make it illegal for states to require that. Now, I mean, this is a democracy in which the federal government is now going to prevent states from requiring labeling on food.
Yeah.
In China, a dictatorship, they actually developed an app that allows consumers to get the whole history of a food that they buy.
Right.
That is the food has the food has a label on it.
Right.
You shine a laser on this label, or you scan it.
Yep.
And you can find out where this food was grown, where it was processed. You can get the whole history of that piece of food. And that's in a communist dictatorship. And here, in a democracy, politicians are trying to prevent us from finding out whether the food that we eat is genetically modified or not.
Well, I'm going to invite you back because we're going to talk about this. We actually are launching a campaign that's called No Label, No Table, meaning if you don't see a label on it, do not put it on your table. And so I hope you will come back, Dr. Galland. Thank you so much for a fabulous show and all that you do. And please, I hope you will come back and we will do part 2. Thank you so very much for all that you do.
I'd love to do it.
Awesome. I'm with him. If you're not finding something on the label that says no GMOs, you know what? No GMO means no go. You don't buy it. Let's take a short break, everyone. We'll see you in a little bit. Have a great rest of your day. If you got to skip off, if you've missed any part of this, it will replay tonight. And by the way, the archive will be up ASAP. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Lyme Talk Radio with Dr. Pat Baccili, Epic Healing for an Epic Life. This inspiring show highlights leading-edge solutions, groundbreaking research, headline topics, and tools for holistic healing and wellness. This hit show is dedicated to raising awareness, promoting advocacy and prevention, and supporting initiatives for optimal health. Dr. Pat is passionate and focused on life-saving results reaching far beyond Lyme disease, providing a forum for powerful stories, heart-opening experiences, and hope-activated solutions. Dr. Pat will shine a light on the many shades of Lyme disease, fueled by a body-mind-spirit remedy. For more information, visit LymeTalkRadio.com and tune in next time.